All right, here we go. Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
All right, guys. Showtime.
Hey, guys. Showtime.
All right, showtime.
All right, showtime.
Hey, showtime.
Showtime, kid.
Let's bring it in. It's showtime, right?
It's showtime. Let's kick some ass.
Ed Berliner, the fastest show in sports.
Greetings, true believers, and welcome back into the fastest show in sports. I am your host. I am the ringmaster, Ed Berliner, joined by the man from the New York Times, the Washington Post, ESPN, and so many other places over his career, which once again proves that those of us in this business, we can't hold a freaking job. Mike Wise joins us as always. Isn't that right? I mean, Mike, we look at it, and we look at our careers, and we go, I mean, why couldn't I just keep one freaking job?
It's fun. It's a long story, but yeah,
Long story.
You know what? No, my story is more complicated in that, I didn't know when the New York Times was going to make me a columnist, so the Washington Post offered me like lots more money. I'll be honest, lots more money than the New York Times, believe it or not. And there was this note from the sports editor at the time, who's great editor. Emilio Garcia Ruiz, he leads the San Francisco Chronicle now. He writes me something like, I see your career as Free Willy, and I just want to go down there and cut those cables so you can come out. And I'm going, I am about as big as a whale. He's right. But it was such a flattering pitch. And, I think Wilbon told them he needed to get me and all this and stuff. So, they hired me as a columnist. So it was a kind of a big deal. And then, of course, when ESPN came knocking, they offered me more money, and
Bravo.
Yeah, but I was there during 3 years of turmoil. There's only really 2 good years of the site that I was hired to work on, the Race Culture Sports site, that really got going. The first year was just Jason Whitlock, and it was just at any rate. But then I got a TV gig, and then I don't know. It's just it's the industry now. People used to get jobs like you wouldn't if you had gotten to the New York Times as a journalism graduate anywhere, especially one from Fresno State, but anywhere in America, you stayed there for the rest of your career. But things have changed. The digital world basically changed the landscape.
There used to be a time when it didn't make a difference if you worked in news, sports, whatever, where people came after you because you did a great job. You were a good writer. You were a good reporter, a good anchor. You were something that they wanted. Now, if you're not on social media and you don't have 10 million followers, you're out. I mean, that's all it takes anymore. You don't have to be good at your job. And how many of these people we see on social media these days are just awful writers? I mean, it's brutal. Writing is gone, but they've got 10 million followers on TikTok.
Hey.
Instant job. Just like
that.
All right. Let's get started. We got a long way to go and a short time to get there, as always. It is the college football season. So let us begin the season by first hearkening back to 2010. That's right. A long time ago. As we start to think about, here in the college football season, the absolute attachment, the emotional attachment that people have to their sport, and we're going to ask, why? 2010.
University of Florida head football coach Urban Meyer threw Gator fans for a loop yesterday when he announced that he is stepping down as head coach next season. The reason he gave for the move has nothing to do with UF's rocky season. He said it was time to spend more. He wanted to spend more time with his family, rather, noting that he didn't watch either of his daughters compete in a single high school volleyball game. We're meeting with Urban Meyer today to discuss his departure and find out how he's gearing up for his final bowl game. As for what comes after that, Meyer says he has no immediate plans to return to coaching.
What was different about when you came?
Why? That is fairly simple. I think sometimes we make it far too complex. At the end of the day, I'm very convinced that you're going to be judged on how you are as a husband, as a father, not if how many bowl games we won.
If you have any friends or family who went to UF or support the Gators football team, then you know how much Urban Meyer means to them. We were in Gainesville last night getting reaction from fans who are taking the news hard.
I was just about as devastated as I could be. I was actually more worried for that than from the final that I had.
After having such good seasons the past 4 years, have
the awful season this season, everyone was disappointed with that. So something had to happen.
Mike, I'm emotionally crushed. That poor young man. I'm as devastated as I could be because a coach left the football program. What is it about these coaches? People like Urban Meyer, I get it. He wins 2 national championships there, and then he says, I have to spend more time being a husband and a father. Well, gee, that didn't stop him when Ohio State came calling with a boatload of money, and Jacksonville came calling with a boatload of money to go ahead and move to the NFL. But he decides to leave after having a bad season, and everybody is so broken up. Mike, Urban Meyer didn't leave because he wanted more time with his family. He left because that program was in shambles. He had a toxic culture there. He had 31 players that were arrested, including Aaron Hernandez at one time. What is it's Mike, it's astounding to me this emotional rap that people have, and how the fact that he won us a couple of national championships and now he's gone. My life is never going to be the same.
Well, having covered college football a little bit during my career and having enjoyed it from afar for many years, part of it is, if you ever been to any of these small towns that have big time programs, whether it be Ann Arbor or Happy Valley, Penn State, College Station, Texas, that's the only game in town. So what happens, from Nick Saban to Urban Meyer, all these guys that go to these towns, even though the university is a huge deal and the big moneymaker, they're mostly, most of these guys are the highest paid public employees in their states.
In the state, yeah. I mean, past the
in the
governor,
state, right?
Past anybody else,
right? And so all of a sudden, you're not obviously lording over the state because it's got Florida State, Miami, but Jacksonville itself, it's your little fiefdom. And these guys have these fiefdoms all over the country that it's harder to penetrate with big city media, because the only time big city media shows up is when a real controversy happens, or they're doing a real nice long puff piece on a coach that's been there forever. And so what happens is a lot of a lot of the stuff gets unnoticed, and it goes underground, or you're a student newspaper guy and you can only get so much access before someone buries you. I just think that you can pretty much cultivate the image anywhere you go, except for big cities like New York and other places where it's there's still, you're going to be found out if you're a fraud.
Not that big a deal. I mean, when I was in Boston, I used to go to the Boston College games, and I was the only guy there. I mean, I was the only TV media guy there, and even the SID said to me one time, he said, "You're it. The other stations don't even bother to show up." I said, "Yeah, but I like college football, and it's fun." Right. He says, "But this is Boston. Nobody gives a damn about college football here because they've got everything else to do with. They got the Red Sox, the Patriots, the Bruins, the Celtics, and everything else. They don't care about us."
Well, let's get to the news hook on Urban Meyer. What is there? Yeah.
The news hook here is, I hear that on November the 22nd, I believe it is, they are going to honor Urban Meyer at the University of Florida for his 2 national championships. And my issue comes in with, it leans back a little bit to what we heard from people when Urban Meyer left Florida. He didn't leave because he was tired. If he was tired, he wouldn't have taken another job at Ohio State or another job at Jacksonville. He was trying to escape the mess that he had at Florida. Now, granted, he won those 2 national championships. Got to give him credit for that. And then he won a 3rd at Ohio State. But still, nobody wants to remember the fact that this guy had 31 players that were arrested during his tenure there. It was a Wild West program. They had a culture there of something called, I have to remember, the Circle of Trust is what they called it there, where Meyer had his own players. Everybody, it was just a certain group of players and seniors that were all part of his trust, and everybody else was on the side. And it was a toxic culture. People still love this guy because you brought us a national championship. The heck with the fact that you also happened to be here when Aaron Hernandez was here, and he was one of the guys who got arrested. and you allow these guys to run wild. And guess what? Aaron Hernandez later become a killer. And so it just comes down to all this. It's this.
It was alleged that he also shot.
It's this need to honor these guys. It catches me.
Yeah. He was alleged to have shot someone in the face at Florida too at some point, Aaron Hernandez. And Urban Meyer, people forget he left Ohio State under a cloud of controversy, including the fact that he supported and kept a clear domestic abuser on his staff that beat up his wife, and all of this came out later.
Well, and there was always the story about the Zach Smith. I mean, he is the one who basically had these sexual abuse texts and these sexual abuse issues. And you're right. Meyer just looked the other way. He basically said, well, okay, gee, we got to. Oh, and by the way, there was another one at the University of Florida. I wrote this down. He had a wide receiver named Chris Rainey who was textually threatening his girlfriend. And when Meyer was confronted with it, he said, well, we got to take care of those things. It's one of those tough things that we got to learn from. You had a guy who's threatening his girlfriend here in text, physical violence, and you just let it go. This guy didn't give a crap about anything that happened off the field. As long as I win, I win. And that's the problem, Mike. Even the fans say that. As long as you win, I don't care if somebody's out there shooting somebody in the face. I don't care if they're out doing drugs. I don't care if they're out beating up their girlfriend. Just win. And that is still pervasive, Mike.
Well, what the honoring of Urban Meyer in Jacksonville is essentially about a group of fans, a fan base who, for all intents and purposes, their religion is on Saturdays. Inside that stadium, and the memories are, as they say in Field of Dreams, the memories are so thick you can brush them away. You need a paintbrush to brush them away. It's all about nostalgia and going back to how his teams made them feel. And yeah, he is a great football coach, but he's a lousy human being, and what do you have to do? And to be a great football coach, he had to be a lousy human being at time because he didn't care about the social, academic, or otherwise of the welfare of his players.
There's not
other than the fact that if they could play, they stayed. If they couldn't play, they were gone. It was very clear. So yeah, this is an amoral, awful human being.
It's a mindset here because back to one of the points you just made. There's not a major college football or basketball coach in this country that really gives a crap about the grades. They don't. If you're in a major program, you're not, and this is what the coaches will always say, I'm not hired to come in here and teach them to be good people. I'm here to teach them how to win games. Isn't that what it's? Shouldn't the two go hand in hand, or am I just being Pollyanna-ish?
I'm never surprised by any of this. There's so much there that there's so much to unpack about what you turn away and are blind to versus what's right, what's wrong. I don't think you can find. I don't think you can, other than the qualities it takes to work hard and get a starting position, other than it takes the camaraderie and belief to win games together. The other things with big time college sports, it's like you don't want to see how the sausage is made because it's ugly. And so it goes back to when I wrote about Joe Paterno and the honoring of him at Penn State after all the Sandusky thing, and it was all, and the school wouldn't put it on, but Sue Paterno wanted to because she wanted the memory of her husband. Well, guess what, Sue? I'm sorry. When your husband fails to protect children, he doesn't get to be a leader of men anymore. And so while I think that Joe Paterno did a lot of great things in life, and I'm sure Urban Meyer changed some lives and players that aren't even NFL players, they might be educators now, can look back and say, boy, he taught me some great lessons. When you do other things that are so morally reprehensible and wrong, it disqualifies you from the good part of being part of the human
Okay,
race. And I don't know,
that's a
nobody
great
from
statement
Florida
to
wants
make.
to hear that. Nobody from Florida wants to hear that, but that's the truth.
Well, that is the truth, and that's a great statement to make because, again, it comes down to people were saying, well, he deserves a second chance. Look what he did for us. He did all these things. He absolutely did help some people along the way. He won national championships. He brought us all great joy, and we all had great Saturday afternoons. But where do you draw the line? If somebody is that reprehensible outside of their coaching duties, do you still honor them? Do you still give them a party? Do you still make them a part of your Hall of Fame or whatever you will? Because still, every time, look, there's two classes of people. There's the ones who will think about Urban Meyer and they will say 2 national championships. Then there's the other side of people who will say Urban Meyer, 31 arrests by players. He basically was the guy who let Aaron Hernandez become a potential killer and a killer later on in life. A guy who looked past sexual abuse, a guy who looked past the possibility that a player was going to physically hurt his girlfriend. He looked past all these things. So where's the balance? Do you still honor a guy like that?
I think you're in the minority, and I'm in the minority on that.
I think so.
Because it's sad, but and you know what? I'm all about second chance. Retribution is retribution. I'm sorry, retribution. Claiming, whatever. Claiming, owning your fault, owning your part in the dissolution of a relationship, and whether it's your employer or your romantic partner, whatever. Like, I'm okay. The problem with a guy like Urban Meyer is he doesn't have enough self-awareness, or he's one of the guys that he could never come back and say, this is what I did wrong.
I've never heard him apologize.
And I'm sorry that I did this, and I'd like to make amends to some of the people I hurt. These people aren't about that. They're about erasing the part of the Wikipedia page, getting someone to do a time cleanser on their Wikipedia page, hiring someone to take out the bad stuff so people will only remember the good stuff.
Right.
That person does not get a second chance, in my opinion. And Urban Meyer shouldn't, but he's going to, because he produced memories on a football field for a certain subset of people that, let's by and large, one of our good friends now works down there and works for them. And there are some wonderful people down there that do a great job. But honoring this guy, you have to swallow a lot and look past a lot. You have to be in complete denial to actually honor Urban Meyer at this point.
Exactly. That's my point. You have to completely deny all the bad stuff. And people will say, we'll give him a second chance. He really did good for us. Well, I still have friends of mine in the Boston Police Department who will tell me that if Urban Meyer had clamped down on guys like Aaron Hernandez when he was at college, and if he had not allowed him to get away with all the various indiscretions he did, there's a good chance that they may have been able. And again, this is all guesswork at this point from investigators.
I'm not gonna.
They say had he clamped down on this guy, Aaron Hernandez might not have killed people later in life.
Nah, I don't believe that. I mean, okay. I believe that Urban Meyer's permissive atmosphere of college players running amok contributed to some of that. But Aaron Hernandez's problems were so deep and layered, and he was so far gone even by the time he got to Florida. In some ways, if you read up, but either way, whatever. The guy. It was. I could say this: it was absolutely the wrong program Aaron Hernandez should have gone to try and learn about what he needed to learn in life to survive the things he had to deal with growing up.
Yeah, and nobody goes to college athletics anymore to learn life lessons. They go there to cash in a lot of money.
I did.
Well, but that was 150 years ago. That was a long time ago. You didn't have NIL. You couldn't get all set up for it. All right.
Yeah, I'm the only person. My ears still hurt from the Big Bang, Ed. Yeah.
On to second chances, then, which we have now talked about. Let's switch to another sport. Let's switch to This is an individual who had everything going for him in a major sport in America, but then because of one instance, fell from grace.
Milan Lucic is the sum of an age-old hockey equation. Size plus aggression equals intimidation.
He's a frightening object, right? He's a frightening stature. He's just this big hulk of a guy.
He walks around and he's just physically imposing.
His style was a perfect fit with the town in which he plied his trade for 8 seasons.
When I got there, it was a perfect match. And I think it was that just because of the identity of the city and what they expect from their athletes. And it's those guys before me that already built that identity, and it just happened to be the type of style that I played.
His rambunctious style of play reminded Bruins fans of a generation gone by.
He was probably the most popular athlete, certainly amongst the most popular athletes in Boston. And again, it goes back to the identity of what the Bruins want to be, and I think he personified that.
Milan Lucic was one of those players with the Boston Bruins for 8 seasons where they loved him. He was tough. He was physical. He was that guy. There are many people who still had him tabbed for stardom. He won a Stanley Cup with the Bruins. He left and then came back to the Bruins later in his career recently. He took an injury which basically put him out for the season, but then while he was out injured, there came the allegations that he beat his wife. The cops came in. They arrested him. Lucic basically was released from the Bruins, and he has now caught on with the St. Louis Blues. And people in St. Louis, some of them, Mike, are up in arms. How dare you bring this guy in? A woman beater? He beat his wife? But let's temper that by saying that when this case went to trial, went to court, his wife didn't testify against him. The two of them worked on it. They worked it out. Now, granted, there's nothing more heinous than being somebody who beats a woman. I get that. We don't know all the sordid details. The police know. The Lucic's know. We don't. But the issue comes down here, Mike. Here's a guy who's talented, who's really good at his job. This comes back to some of the other conversations we've had. He's trying to get back in the National Hockey League. He has made amends with his wife. They are still together. And another team is giving him a chance. You and I both know that there's going to be people the first time that Lucic takes the ice. There are people who are going to applaud and say, look at the great guy we got. Look at this. Here's a Stanley Cup champion. But there's also going to be a part there who will say, that guy beat his wife. We don't want him here. He's not good for the culture. He doesn't deserve to be here. Damn it, his career needs to be over. So we got to draw a line. Where do you grant somebody a second chance, Mike? And when do you look past issues off the ice or off the field, and you should now let them get on with their lives?
It's a sad statement on our society, but you give them a second chance when there is no video. Ray Rice was going to play for the Baltimore Ravens with his coach and the organization knowing full well, and some of which may have seen that videotape of him knocking his fiance out at the time cold in an elevator in Atlantic City, knocking her out cold. Until that video developed, Ray Rice was going on about business. Roger Goodell was trying to play marriage counselor, doing something that no defender, no domestic abuse counselor or anybody in the mental health industry says should happen when a victim and the who's the person, the perpetrator, you never have them, irrespective of whether they're trying to work on their relationship. If they're still going through the court proceedings, you don't have them together in a room and they make up to each other, which is what Goodell did. And he wanted to put this whole thing behind them, and the NFL got behind it until the video came out.
Well, he was
if a video came out of Milan,
I mean, let's look at this. He was trying to save the guy's career. He was trying to give him a second chance. But on the other side, there will be people on that side who will say, wait a minute, he beat his wife. You don't give him a second chance. That's it.
But I'm saying it's one thing. You and I are speaking about physical violence against a domestic partner, irrespective whether it worked out or not. This is what happened. what I don't was he charged? Was he convicted, or did they
No,
eventually did she drop the charges?
he was not convicted. He was arrested. He was charged.
So
And when the
so
case
that's so
came to court, his wife refused to testify against him. They are still together.
so
They claim they're trying to work things out.
so I don't legally. How do you hold? So morally, yeah, I'm sickened by it. I don't want to see him on my team, but legally, how do you say to him? I don't know how old Milan is now. He's got to be in his late 30s.
Got to be in his late 30s.
But
I think he's 36 or 37.
yeah, late 30s. And he's probably, and hockey players, some play till over 40 now, but he's got a few years left of earning power. How do you take away his earning power in the finite number of years that an athlete has to make that kind of money, if he wasn't convicted in a court of law on that? The only way you do it is public perception, Ed. And
Well,
if there were a video that came out today of him beating his wife, he would not play in the NHL, because Gary Bettman would say this is so sickening, and we're going to be the league that looks at as giving a second chance to people who beat their wives. But if the video's not out, and there was no trial, and it never went to trial, and he doesn't have a stain against his criminal record. There's no criminal record of this.
Right.
What
Right,
do you
but
do?
why should it
What
make
do
a
you do?
difference, though? And I hear your point loud and clear about there being video, but why should that make a difference? If something
It shouldn't.
happens,
But
if
that's
there's
the
if there's a
society we
moment,
live in.
and I tell you, we'll get hammered by people on this who will say that all we're doing is here, we're making excuses for a wife beater, which we're not doing here. But the
No,
question is,
I don't want to see him work again. I just don't
no.
see legally how you can't.
Well, but see, I guess I fall on the other side. Gosh,
Why?
This is a tough thing to talk about, because I abhor any level of violence against women, children. I think it's disgusting. I think it's despicable. I think the people who do it should be held accountable for the rest of their lives, because you just don't hit a woman. Period. End of story in any circumstance. But we don't know what happened, so there's a part of me that says we can't just take his career away. And on that side, it's one of those. It's a vexing issue where you just don't know what's right and what is wrong.
Well, look, we all have unions representing us, and if we work for a major corporation, usually there's an NHL players union. They would be fighting this tooth and nail if they tried to blackball him from the league right now, and they would have every right to, because he hadn't been convicted in a court of law. There's also the notion of, if you have a special business, and your special business has rules like a moral turpitude clause, which every NHL contract does, then if you're Gary Bettman and there's enough public outcry, you use that moral turpitude clause against the player, and you say, you broke the code. You broke our. Yeah, I know we don't really. There's also a code where you get to beat up players on the ice, but you don't get to beat up your spouse off of it, and therefore we need to not have you in our league anymore.
But again, it goes right back to this circle that we're in here right now. I wasn't convicted. My wife didn't testify against me. We're still together. We're trying to work it out. So how do you?
Give him a second chance, but give him a second chance, but
with a short rope.
Whatever shame is going to come his way, he deserves all of it. Whatever cat calls from the visiting teams, he deserves all of it, and he has to put up with it because of his actions. And when you say we don't know what happened, I mean, I'd have to see photos and the police report themselves to actually corroborate the charge originally. But let's be honest, I don't think Milan Lucic's wife beat him up. Let's just say that.
No. There's never been any indication.
So
he's a physical guy, plays in a physical game.
I can envision him. I can envision him standing over his wife in a threatening manner, which is enough. Like I said, if I was a league commissioner and I had any video proof of that in a public setting, Milan Lucic would not be on the ice anymore. That's how society reacts now. It's so sad. It's what it is. If there were tomorrow, if we had 10,000 views on this video and somebody thought it was interesting, they would go ahead and sign up as a sponsor. If we had 10,000 people say, get these guys even off the air, this is awful what they're doing, and there was enough of a corporate outcry, what we said would be fine, but how people reacted would force someone's hand, and all of a sudden we'd be off YouTube. This is our society now. We don't go on our own gut instincts. We don't go about the right and wrong our parents taught us growing up. We go about what perception tells us to do. And that's the pathetic thing about all of this.
Well, it goes back to, and again, you can connect the two of them. Urban Meyer at Florida, where he basically ran
Yes.
a reckless program, yet he won 2 national championships. So people there want to honor him. Milan Lucic spent a long career in the National Hockey League, won a Stanley Cup for the Boston Bruins, but now he's trying to come back. But people will say, no, the only thing we're going to remember is that you beat your wife. There's no sameness here, Mike. There doesn't seem to be any real rule. It's just where it hits you. And now the St. Louis Blues are going to have him on the ice, and they're going to have to deal with the backlash. And I get a feeling that I don't think he's going to make it, because the organization is going to have to say, we can't put up with this, because that's all people remember is the bad side.
Yeah, well, I get that. And I also believe that, like I said, same thing with Urban Meyer, all these guys. You'd be surprised how far saying sorry and making amends and showing that you're sorry means to you in society. No one will, to this day, give Michael Vick a second chance in their minds. I know you won't, because you're a dog lover, but this guy has spent considerable time going into schools and talking to kids about what he did. He has worked with the national SPCA. He is like, this is a guy who has committed his part of his life post going to jail for running a dog fighting ring to ensuring people know that's not how you treat dogs. He'll never get credit for that. But the fact that he's doing it for his own conscience and makes me think that Michael Vick, while it's going to be in the first line of his obituary that he went to prison for 19 months for running a dogfighting ring, is also a guy who forced himself to change and forced himself to admit that he did was wrong. A lot of people won't do that. If Milan Lucic came out in front of a camera tomorrow and said, yeah, I did. I got into physical altercation with my wife. It's the worst thing I ever did in our marriage. And I've spent not just time with her in counseling about it, but I've talked to other NHL players about the need to restrain ourselves when we get off the ice. The idea that domestic violence is so wrong and can destroy families, can destroy relationships. And I have to let people know that. I'll tell you what, I would welcome Milan Lucic back, because he made amends. There's only a few things to me that you can't come. There's a few things that you can't. There's a few things that you can't come back from, Ed. To me, child sexual abuse and murder. That's it for me.
But is Michael Vick doing this? And I got to go back to Vick again, because that opens up another whole can of worms here. Does Michael Vick do all these things out of his conscience, because he wants to clean himself, because he wants to be better? Or is he doing it because he has to market himself to make a buck, and he knows this is the only way that he's going to get out there, is if he comes out? Michael Vick has never really come out and said, I did wrong, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it. He has always kind of soft-pedaled this whole thing about what he did. He's never really come clean on what he's done.
We should, before you say that with conviction, we should research that, because I have seen some pretty what I'd call revelational quotes from him, where I thought, oh wow, he does get it. Maybe, but I guess to your point though, I said that in my book, there's only 2 things you don't come back from: child sexual abuse and murder, and premeditated murder, not manslaughter. You got caught in the passion of the moment, whatever, because something happened. I believe that you can come back from a lot of things, but I think there has to be a redemptive process. Lance Armstrong, the stupidest thing he ever did was live the big lie for how many ever years until he finally had no other choice,
Yeah, there's
and then
no
he became a
redemption for a guy
pariah.
like Lance Armstrong.
People didn't even
Continue to
care
lie
that
over and
Lance
over again. Yeah.
Armstrong said people didn't even care that Lance Armstrong said he used because they all knew it for years.
And he just continued to deny it constantly. So, yeah, there's no coming back from that. But the simple question then is, does a guy like Milan Lucic, with what is in his past, and we know, does he deserve a second chance? I say yes.
I say legally yes, morally until I hear an apology or the fact that he has taken domestic violence seriously. He just wants to put this behind him in some way that people don't remember it. I say no. Morally, no. Legally, yes.
All right. Speaking of moral issues and everything else, let's move on here. There is nothing worse in life than a degenerate gambler. We know you. We see you. You're there. We're looking you right in the face right now because you are the kind of person who will bet on anything, anytime, anywhere. It's a sickness, damn it. We know it's part of your makeup.
If you imagine the complaints all the time now about social media and the endless scroll, for example, and the sports books apps basically mimic the endless scroll, where when we legalized this in 2018, we were probably imagining, hey, I'm going to bet on the Knicks over or whatever. I'm probably going to lose because it's the Knicks, but I'm going to bet on the Knicks over or whatever. I'm from.
Yeah, they lost a lot of money.
So that's normal. Okay, like I'm going to bet on a team to win the game. Okay, that's normal. But these days, you can bet on like Malaysian women's doubles badminton.
Correct.
Because there's obviously a huge black market for Malaysian women's doubles badminton, and we need to get those gamblers who are gambling illegally onto our apps. So this endless stream of betting options. You can bet on like the speed of the next pitch. You're a tennis guy. You can bet on like whether the next tennis serve will be an ace. The goal is to mimic the slot machine phenomenon or the roulette wheel phenomenon where just constant action. You finish your roll. Okay, let's just do another one. And there's just constant sources of action rather than having to wait 3 hours for your bet to materialize.
Yeah, that was something that really resonated with me from the book. It's that the gambler isn't necessarily addicted to they won or they lost. They're addicted to the action. They're addicted to the feeling of will they win or lose. And that never ends. And it also makes a really shitty basketball game exciting all of a sudden.
Right. And if every 5 minutes you can bet on, or not even every 5 minutes, every 5 seconds you can bet on something new, and you can get that feeling, that dopamine hit that you get when the roulette wheel is spinning.
That dopamine hit, that need, that degeneracy in gambling. Now we're betting on the Little League World Series? Holy crap! I mean, and this is not even anything new, Mike. The story comes out this week in the National Network News. The AP does a story on it. This has been going on for 4 years. I mean, you can't bet.
People have been betting on I could have bet on the Little League World Series.
You could have bet on the Little League World Series. You can't do it in the United States. A platform here, you can't do it. But there's a couple of offshore gambling sites that say, yeah, we'll take all the action you can get on the Little League World Series. We'll take everything. The coaches are out there wondering what it's going to do to the sport. They're more worried about the kids being exposed to this. But what is this? Somebody's got to tell me, and I understand the whole medical thing about the dopamine hit that people are taking. But in the same breath, what the hell's wrong with you? I mean, you're betting on 12-year-olds.
No. This is not. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. See, this is where you and I don't ever have to work again after this. What we do is we go through that offshore account. We get a middle guy. He gets to Williamsport. He convinces 12-year-olds on Nevada's Little League team, which is really good, to throw a game, to throw 8 men out, but it'd be 8 little kids out, 8 little leaguers out. We could have our own little it could be the White Sox sandal, but now in 2025, and we could get those. We could get 12-year-olds. We could get 12-year-olds to make us rich beyond our wildest dreams if they throw one game. And you know what? And you know what they get? Man. You know what they get? They get a lifetime supply of freaking Bubblicious. You know how many 12-year-olds would take that? That's all it cost us.
You're a sick and twisted individual. I mean, without
but I'm going to be a rich one.
But But it comes down again to this. I mean, people want
Yeah.
to bet on anything. And again, that women's Malaysian doubles badminton tournament, I want to get in on that action right away because that seems to me like that might be something that everybody is missing. But the guy's right. Everybody is out there, and you want to bet on everything. They want to bet on pitches. They want to bet on individual shots. They want to bet on individual seconds in a game. What the hell is wrong with this country? Is sports no longer watchable just because it's sports? I mean, the point made there was because a game, you turn a shitty game into something really interesting because you got money on it right now. Is that what it takes to make sports anymore enjoyable?
I think you asked a lot of good questions about it, but I think that the big one that I think is interesting is what does this really do to the games? What does this really do to the games? We already know what it does to us. The dopamine, and I've been in a casino bloodshot thinking I'm gonna hit the big one before. You know, I know I've got a part of my personality that needs to stop with food. Has never got into drinking and drugs because I've seen what it's done to relatives, including a really close family member. But I know that I have other predispositions to addiction, and anybody that's ever had to hit the cherries on the slot machine keeps going. It's that dopamine you get when certain runners get it from endorphins. Some people get it from slot machines and what. So we know why people gamble, and we know what it does to your brain chemistry and how it's so addictive. What we don't know is overall what this really does to, and we're seeing it now. We're seeing it with an NBA player that's going to be banned for life because he basically conspired with some guys on a prop bet to take himself out of a game, and it was Michael Porter's brother in Toronto, unfortunately, and that guy's never going to play in the NBA again. We've seen some of the ugliness that's happening. I think the bigger thing, and you hinted at it there, was if you're, and I remember Ted Leonsis, the owner of the Wizards, the Washington Wizards and the Washington Capitals, said to me once, he was the first person to have a sports book inside his arena, and it's at the bottom floor, and it's who runs it, Bally's or somebody overseas. But it's sad because it's not even it's like a bunch of degenerates at 1 a.m. and they close at 10, but it's done nothing to enhance the area. The Green Turtle, which was a decent sports bar before there, was much better. But what it really does is he spoke to me, said, what if you could be in your seat and you could bet on a quarter or a play right from your seat, and you could hit a button in your seat. And I thought to myself, Ted, that's really convenient, but it's also beyond warped, because if you start getting to the point where the betting becomes more important than your allegiance to a team, well, like you're going to lose core fans that just care about betting now. They don't care about the team. It's like everything becomes fantasy football. Everything in your life becomes fantasy football. It's not about what the team you grew up with loving, and it's about winning the next prop bet. It's about seeing if Mikal Bridges can hit 3 threes in the third quarter and I could cash out, and who cares if the Knicks lose or win.
But we're getting away from it here because the issue here, I mean, look, if people want to bet, they're above age, they can do whatever they want, they're legally, they can do it, fine. You go right ahead and do it. You want to go ahead and try to make some money, you want to go ahead and ruin your life, please. Go right ahead and do it. I don't care. And nobody should care either. That's you. But we're talking about little leaguers. We're talking about betting on 10, 11, 12-year-olds here. And it's now becoming and now with this, more people are going to do it. You know as well as I do that now that we're talking about it, and the networks are talking about it, and the story is out there, and the Associated Press is running a story on it that's getting picked up everywhere. Yeah. People are going to go, I didn't know I could do that. Then you're going to have them looking at 10 and 12-year-olds, what they've been doing their entire careers, where do they play their games. Who knows? You might actually have a really good Little League player where somebody's going to show up at his field one day and scout the kid. He's 11 years old, but he's out there, and I got to watch him because I know that he takes every pitch on a 3-1 count. He takes every time.
Yeah,
so somebody can groove him a fastball. It's got to stop somewhere.
I mean, I don't. The idea that somehow the betting world is exploiting 12-year-olds, it's laughable to me, because let's be honest. ESPN, ABC televises that event every year. 12-year-olds are emotionally manipulated every year. You get to watch their adolescence play out in tears and everything on TV. I don't see the kids getting money for it. They've all, it's ridiculous. It all goes to William. It's a deal with Little League between the network. And I don't see it, maybe it pays for some uniforms somewhere down the road. Anybody that makes the World Series should get an agent, to be honest. You're on television. You're making ABC millions of dollars based on, you being, remember the Monique Davis? She was great. She was great. She should have had an agent going into that.
There comes
They're
an argument.
exploiting.
Wait a minute.
They take the fun. It's on when a camera's in your face all the time. It's forced child labor.
You're throwing this into another entire issue here. ABC and ESPN. Look, this always used to be Wide World of Sports used to have the Little League World Series, and it was part of the show at that point. And it wasn't a big deal. They didn't make it. You couldn't watch every game. There weren't, of course, streaming that came at that point. It was just you watch one game, the championship, and there it is. But now it has become big business. ABC, Disney, ESPN, they're all making fortunes off it. So, why shouldn't the kids get a piece of it? Well, wait a minute here. Stop yourself and hear what I'm saying. We want 11-year-olds to get paid for playing baseball. But if they're making money for them, where is the money going? See, that's something I'm not aware of. I don't know where a lot of this money goes to. I'm considering that it goes back into Little League.
Are you considering what?
No, that the money that is made from the sponsorships or the money that ESPN pays Little League, that it gets plowed back into Little League and it gets plowed back somehow into the local teams. But if it doesn't, then everybody's just making a buck off 11 and 12-year-olds. I got the degenerate gambler right over here going, well, shit, ESPN's making money. Why can't I? It's legal.
Exactly. And by the way, had you taken Aruba over Japan in an international game the other day, I just happened to see the headline. Aruba beat Japan. I have no idea I would have loved to see the odds in whatever offshore booking account or English betting parlor that line was posted. Aruba beating Japan might have been the biggest upset in non-championship play at the Little League World Series ever, Ed. We could have cashed.
I wonder how parents feel when they know that their kid is out there, their son or their daughter is out there playing Little League baseball, and you've got some guy sitting in a basement somewhere, smoking his 17th cigarette in the last 8 minutes, knocking down a little Ripple and going, oh, I got him. I got this kid right here. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Let's call it in right now. I got this one. Oh, I know exactly who this kid is. It's going to make me a fortune. I wonder how parents feel about that.
Guess what?
They don't.
If I got a stud kid in that series, I'm betting the other dad on the other team, his stud kid is not as good as my stud kid, and I'm taking money from the other team's dad right there.
You're one of those parents
This is America. This is America,
son.
This is America, and your children should work for you, Ed.
Well, there you go. Maybe they should work, and maybe again.
And afterwards, we're going to meet up at the Cracker Barrel. where you can take the white cracker off the logo, but you can't take the Cracker Barrel out of the white cracker. Oh, did you hear that?
Here's my impersonation of a bunch of people in America right now as soon as that story hit.
Yeah.
Freaking MAGA heads exploding all over the place.
You know what? I mean, I don't know if I can boycott a chicken fried steak, but I might. All right.
I can't remember the last time I was. No, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Last time I was in the Cracker Barrel, it's no big deal. My dad, God rest his soul, he loved Cracker Barrel. We never got back.
Nacho, calm down. I'm doing a podcast.
Nacho wants to make sure that you get him a little something. Hey, wait a minute. Why don't we bet on how many times Nacho will bark during the show? I got an over-under.
You want that, buddy?
See?
All right, ready? Okay. I'm going to say 2 more times during the show. We'll bet $5.
All right. Here we go. It is time to once and for all decide that there is a major global international sport that needs to be put out of its misery, at least from one perspective.
Jake Paul going toe-to-toe with 39-year-old Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.
And it's another win for Jake Paul. He was greeted with boos post-fight after winning his 6th straight fight, calling out anyone and everyone requesting multiple title shots and a possible rematch with Tommy Fury. Jake claims he's just getting warmed up. This was just his 13th professional boxing fight. Back here with Brian Campbell, Danny Vitlani. BC, what did you see? What are your takeaways from this latest bout from Jake Paul?
It kind of depends on what we're judging him. If we're judging Jake Paul as a future cruiserweight title challenger, I'd have to say he has a long way to go. But going 10 rounds against a former champion, even if that former champion is a Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who was 39 years old and really 13 years or so removed from credibility in the ring, at least Jake had to go 10 hard rounds, which was an improvement from some of the 8-round fights he's had earlier. And he had to fight off a somewhat stiff challenge late from a Chavez who pretty much took the first 4 rounds off completely of this fight and really took a long time to heat up and finally get going. I don't mean to be a hater here, but you do have to judge with some knowledge compared to the rest of boxing. It's one thing to be the best celebrity fighter in the world. It's another thing to legitimately climb the ladder and fight for a cruiserweight world title.
And this is a kind of Mickey Mouse path to the title shot that he might carve for himself. If Jake Paul is able to get a WBC ranking next to his name by having defeated a former middleweight champion, then kudos to him for the way he's done it. A genius marketer, but with the credibility, like BC alluded to, is not at the highest level. Although, you know, he did fight a tough fight in the last 5 rounds of this one. Chavez Jr. decided in the 5th round, you know, I am here to fight. I'm going to make something of myself. And Paul sustained a late onslaught from him. But, you know, how much can we credit him looking good, using his size and his youth and his speed for the first 5 rounds against the guy who's just kind of taking the fight off early on?
It is time to finally put boxing out of our misery. It's over. It's done. We are at a stage right now where you and I both remember at a time when there would be a big heavyweight fight or a major championship fight. Everybody would be talking about it for days leading up and for days afterward. It captivated everybody's imagination. But right now we have a sport where the biggest thing in the sport is a former YouTube influencer who jacked his body up, who basically markets the hell out of himself, does a great job with it, gets millions of hits across the world in his boxing, and he sucks. He's one of the worst technical fighters I have ever seen, and I know fighters because I've been covering this sport for a long time. And all he does is take on tomato cans, old farts, and people who are ready to go ahead and get a walker somewhere in an old age boxing home. We are talking about Jake Paul is the thing to talk about in boxing right now. Boxing is dead. Mike, it's over. Put it out of its misery, because if this clown show is what's running boxing right now, I don't want to be a part of it anymore. The sport is dead.
Well, Howard Cosell claimed that boxing was dead in about 1983 or something, 84, when Larry Holmes fought. The guy who ended up in the Raising Arizona movie.
Not
you know who I'm thinking. The guy who gets blown up at the end.
Tex Cobb, I think.
Tex Cobb. Tex Cobb fought Larry Holmes, and it was such an and Howard Cosell during the fight says, "This is an abomination I've never seen. I can't do this." And like, he literally never did another fight after that, and he said boxing was dead. Of course, that came out. That came before Sugar. Some of the great fights of the '80s. And, I live in Panama, the home of Manos Di Piedra, Roberto Duran. He's still a figure here. I hope to meet him in a couple weeks. And so here's the deal. I don't think boxing is dead. I think that we're in a new world where it's not even boxing. And by the way, we will lose anybody that watches the YouTube feed. We will lose every viewer we have, including people related to us, if you run that whole clip. If you should just kill that clip, actually, because it is so bad and so boring. It's worse than anything. It's worse than our worst exchange.
It's boring. It sets everything up. Jake Paul is a joke. I love it when one commentator goes, I don't want to be a hater.
But it doesn't even
go ahead and be a hater. It's ridiculous.
But it doesn't even tag the news of the day, which is he's going to be fighting Gervonta Davis, Tank, who is almost 100 pounds lighter than him, and that's the news of the day.
And you're right. That's
So people will watch a freak show now like they never could before. In many ways, when Barry Bonds came to the
Jake Paul.
when Barry Bonds came, right. And so, but to your point about boxing being dead, that fight isn't getting talked about as much as the one September 13th coming up, which is actually going to be a pretty good fight between Terrence Bud Crawford and Canelo Alvarez.
Most people
are
don't even know
talking
these boxers anymore, Mike.
that's probably the biggest fight so far this year.
Look,
Canelo
the
Alvarez.
difference between when Howard Cosell said it and the fact that I'm saying it now is when Howard said that boxing was dead, there was no other sport. There was no other type of combat sport. There was no UFC. There was no MMA. Nothing else was out there. And boxing was the only combat sport that was being televised around the world, basically for free. We hadn't even hit the pay-per-view era yet. But now we have the fact that fighters are completely unrecognizable. You don't know who champions are. WBA, WBC, WBO, they've all ruined this thing over the years completely. The alphabet organizations made all their money, and now they've walked away.
Yeah.
And you have people who have a chance to go, well, I don't want to see these guys. Here, let me go over here and watch MMA, which is human cockfighting. But they'll watch Jake Paul just because it's nothing more than a freak show, but nobody cares anymore. That's the sport. The sport is now overrun with combat sports, and the younger generation would rather see them than see this guy in his clown show.
Yeah, but you can't name a UFC fighter, a good UFC fighter right now either. I mean,
no, you're right. I can't because I'm not a fan.
But the deal here, the deal with that is there's more entertainment options. You know, the ratings that some of the sports had at some point in their all sports had are now being challenged by all these things. And I don't, it's what people can make money out of now. Jake Paul could never fight a genuine contender because he'd get knocked out. Everybody knows that in boxing, but not in real life because stupid people are suckers for marketing now. This is the marketing to stupid people in America, and it works. It works, Ed.
Look, this is nothing more than
some people buy the Prime drink and think it's going to change their lives.
This is nothing more than
we are not a smart country, Ed. We're not a smart country.
No, we're not a smart country, but also it's a freak show. It's the bearded lady. It's the rubber man sitting there that you go in and you pay the ticket for. People want to see it because it's just that. A completely tattooed head-to-toe human being who can't box worth a damn, technically is awful, footwork is bad, doesn't really have a knockout punch, is nothing more than a guy who basically streamed down to go ahead and make a marketing ploy, and now you have him at 227 pounds. He's going to fight a 135-pound fighter. I mean, this is ridiculous. There's not a governing body in the world worth its salt that would ever give any sort of credence to this, but it gets done now because boxing is desperate to make money. Stop making money. Put yourself out of business. It's done. I'm a boxing guy, Mike. I'm a blow-by-blow commentator. I've been doing it for years. I haven't done a fight in a long time. Why? Because the fights suck. I don't want to be involved in them. There's no talent anymore. And when I get called into a fight, I try to figure out who it is. I won't do it because it's a joke.
There's a young Japanese fighter who's so unbelievably exciting. He rules like the featherweight or one of the lower weight divisions right now. There's Canelo's getting up there, but Bud Crawford's a great. But there's a guy called the Towering Inferno, Mexican fighter. He's 6'4". His sister's also a world boxing champion. There are some interesting people out there. I follow it because Mark Kriegel, a friend of mine, does it for ESPN, and I've always been interested in the fights. But I haven't paid for a fight in a long time. Nope. I wished I had paid for that Fury Wilder 3 fight because that turned out to be a really good fight. I think I'm going to pay for Bud Crawford and Canelo Alvarez because there's a lot of interest in that fight, and I want to see who's the better fighter in their generation.
But it even comes down to the fact,
Mike,
that we used to talk about fights when they were coming up for months and weeks. We used to talk, and now we don't talk about them. Nobody really pays any attention to it. That's my point. The whole boxing world right now is focused on a freak show in Jake Paul. And
I don't think the whole boxing world.
Sure they are.
I don't
Because
think.
they're looking at the
No,
money
they're
that's
not.
being made.
The whole YouTube influencer world cares about that shit. A lot
But
of
that
people
has
that are
more
boxing
fans and more
purists,
followers than boxing.
boxing fans are, you're right. There's a lot of people interested. The gate for Canelo Alvarez and Bud Crawford will double or triple whatever they pay to see Jake Paul. I guarantee you.
I'm gonna take you up on that bet. I will.
Okay.
Because,
All right. We're betting now. We're degenerate gamblers.
holy God, we're
Bark,
just degenerate
Nacho,
gamblers.
bark.
But it's
Bark
time
again,
to put.
Nacho.
It's as much as I want to see boxing come back, it's dead. I mean, I don't see any way that it's ever going to come back. Thanks to UFC and MMA and all the other combat sports that are out there, they got it right. As much as I think Dana White and that whole crew are a bunch of con artists, they got it right.
Yeah.
They put it up there at the right time. They marketed it. They put it up there every week as a championship fight. They have blood. They have guts. They have people getting crushed. They have people getting beaten to the ground. But as I've had conversations with my buddy Wallace Matthews, who knows boxing better than anybody, Wallace, and even he talks about the fact that it's not even real fighting. It's not even real boxing. It's guys just basically guys and gals just trying to beat each other up. But it sells, and there's a group of people out there that like it. God bless them. God bless them.
We're in the man, Ed.
God
bless America. God bless America, Panama, and the world that you and I missed the manosphere age, and we became too old for it. These crypto bro losers that are at home, and they're spending more time in the gym than they are romancing their girlfriends, who they really they don't want to have a real relationship with because they've been told that women are bad for them. Like God bless us that we didn't grow up in an era in which you literally, like, the Tate brothers are a role model and Dana White is a role model. Like, these people are fake men. People, it's like me and you punching someone in the face and going, "Now I'm a man." Shut the
You're missing the key point. Remember what
You're right, I'm old.
Remember what Mickey told Rocky. Women weaken legs, Rock. Women weaken legs.
Wow.
It tells you everything you need to know about society right there.
Jake LaMotta didn't have orgasms between fights. Can you imagine that? Like, not even being with a woman, but not having orgasm. Like, are you kidding me? Like that extra sperm is going to help you in the ring? Come on.
And with that, seeing as we've now touched on extra sperm, we're out of here. Don't forget to catch us on YouTube at The Fastest Show in Sports. You can catch the shows, full shows in video and audio, and you can also catch all the clips. And you can catch Mike as he talks about betting on 12-year-olds and making money, which is frightening enough in itself. Playing baseball, that is, playing baseball. Let me make sure that everybody makes that point right now. And if you want to catch us on audio, on podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, we're there. Just go ahead, dial us up, and be part of all the mess and all the wonder and all the extra. What are you doing the rest of the day, the weekend, huh?
I'm going to be an unpaid Uber driver for my children and take
Good
them
man.
to events but I am going to a cultural festivity thing tomorrow, and we're going to meet real, authentic Panamanians from the tribal days, and that part I really am looking forward to. The food is going to be great, the people are going to be great, and all I have to do is watch and listen and absorb a great culture and a great people.
Have a good time, because I'm going to be cleaning out a warehouse.
There you go.
There goes it. For Mike Wise, I'm Ed Berliner. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Don't forget, YouTube, podcast, and all the rest. Join us right here on The Fastest Show in Sports. Until next time, true believers, see ya!
That's all, folks.